Hello everyone, this is Prem Kumar. I would like to start this video by describing about IDEs that we use in other programming languages. First, what is IDE? IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, where developers can use those IDEs to develop their software. When you want to develop some applications using different languages, you can also choose different IDEs. The commonly used IDEs, which you can see it in the picture, it can be Intel IJ, it can be Eclipse, Neon, Android Studio, Visual Studio, even Notepad++. Now who choose these IDEs? If you are working for some organization, the organization may have some policy or they may have some subscriptions. If you are using some licensed IDE, there are a lot of open source IDEs as well, which is free to use. Again, this is based on your organization policy. If you are working as a team with 4 to 5 developers, ideally everyone should be using the same IDEs. That will really help with the collaboration. Ideally, in other programming languages, what they will be doing is they will be developing this software or the source code using these IDEs, and they will have some kind of merge policies where they will have a deployment or a jar is created, and then they will be deploying those changes into higher environments. Now let's look at some of the advantages of using IDE. The first one is it helps to create software applications. Definitely the developers will be using IDE to develop source code for their applications, so it helps to develop some applications. It also helps to correct syntax and give warning about the code quality. When you are using IDE, you can install a lot of plugins. For example, if you are creating some Docker files, then if you use some plugins related to Docker, that can really help to verify the syntax. If you have some kind of spacing or some syntax error, the IDE will give you a warning, or it can give you an error saying that the syntax is wrong. This can really help with the development. The third is easy to develop with code completion. Using IDE, you can also auto-complete some of your coding automatically. So these are all the advantages of using IDE. Now, do we have any IDE in Pega? In Pega, we don't have any IDE, but instead of IDE, we have studios in Pega. Unlike IDE, which needs to be installed in every developer machine, in Pega, we'll be having a development server, and that development server will already hold all the installed studios. These will come out of the box when you get subscription from Pega systems. Now let's look at some of the common studios in Pega. The first is the Dev Studio. Dev Studio, as the name suggests, this is the development studio where developers tend to log in and do their development activities. The next is the App Studio. Before we call it as Pega Express, and with Pega Infinity we call it as App Studio. App Studio is kind of a low-code platform where even business people can collaborate with the development team. They can do some kind of software development. Primarily this is intended for the citizen developers. In Pega's context, we call citizen developers as the business people, but even the developers can go to App Studio and do some low-code development works. Pega is strongly recommending to use this App Studio for the development activities. Especially this will be really helpful when you are building an application for the very first time or a brand new greenfield application. You can try out App Studio. Next is Admin Studio. Admin Studio is where you can perform some administrative tasks. It can be like you can manage your background processing jobs. You can configure some kind of APIs and manage the Swagger pages of the APIs. You can control the person who logged in into the servers. There are a lot more administration activities which you can do it in the Admin Studio. If you remember, in the older Pega versions, we have a standalone Java application. We call it as SMA. SMA stands for System Management Application, from where we can perform some administrative tasks. Now Pega brings everything into the Pega's application into the Admin Studio. Now there is no more dependency with the different Java application. You can browse on Pega community page if you want to learn more about the system management application. From Pega 8, we no more use the system management application. We always use the Admin Studio. The fourth studio is the Prediction Studio, which can be used for some decisioning. For now, that will be out of scope for this video series. Now that we looked into all 4 studios that comes out of the box with the Pega installation. So what are the advantages of all these studios? If you see the first advantage, definitely it helps to create Pega applications. and with Admin Studio we can also monitor the applications. It also helps to correct errors and give warning about code quality. Pega internally it has its own guardrail warning stuff. So whenever you develop some code and when you go out of the guardrail, then Pega gives a warning message to your development code. It is very easy to develop with rule form configuration. Just remember this, in Pega we never build anything from scratch. Pega with the software, they provide some internal engine code. They provide us some rule form. All we do is configure the rule form. That is why I always say in Pega programming, you need more of logical reasoning instead of some programming skills. Of course, you need programming skills, but this is more like a logical configuring. When you write some activity, you need to know which steps should be calling which actions. So these are like kind of logical reasoning which you have to use it for the Pega development. Enough of the introduction. In the coming videos, we'll have an overview of all three studios. See you in the other video.